right, so we got cost for straight line. Cost,
minus the
residual value divided by
life.
life. What was the formula for units of production?
Cost minus residual value
Cost minus residual value
times unit in year
times units in year
divided by total units.
divided by total units. Okay, what was the other formula I said you could use?
Cost minus residual value
Okay,
divided by total units
divided by total units
equals depreciable rate times unit in year.
equals depreciable rate times units in year. All right, and then double declining.
Cost minus.
Cost minus
Accumulated depreciation
accumulated depreciation
times 2
2
divided by
divided
life.
by that.
divided by life. All right, those are our formulas.
Let's put 3.
But in the video,
I was wondering. I'm
Well,
like,
just so
that'd
you
be
know,
life.
that's the life in that problem. 2 divided by life.
but in the videos for the unit of production or whatever,
Right,
they only show one formula.
That's right.
I think the first one.
that's right. Because the second one's minus. Okay. They only show the one. I'm showing you the other because I think it's easier. You can do whichever one you want, is what I told you on Tuesday. Now, I told you guys I wanted you to try to do this problem. Which, how many people did it? Okay, you guys are killing me. I have 1 hand, 2 hands, right? 3 hands. You just didn't raise your hand. Is your hand broken? All right. So 3 people out of 13 did something that probably could have taken you, okay, I'm going to say 10. 10 minutes. These are the things you got to do better on your test. Was there any homework due today?
The videos.
The
and
videos.
separate
Chapter 8 homework.
So, yes.
So yes.
Video, which videos? I didn't see any
Not
videos.
videos.
There's no videos due
There's no
today.
videos.
Chapter 8 homework was due
I
today.
did chapter 9 videos.
So that's good.
You learned.
The homework was due today.
I didn't see anything to do.
No, there's no videos due. The homework was due today.
They all got scared.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good.
The homework is due today, but this would have taken another 10 minutes. These are the things that if you do this, then we go quicker through this and can get to a harder problem, which then will help you with your homework. You guys got to help yourself, okay? All right, so here's our information. We have the cost is $62.5. The residual value, which I sometimes slip and call salvage value, same thing, is $2,500. Life of 3, and then for units of production, they tell us it's 100,000 miles. So let's work this problem. So for straight line, we got 62.5 minus 2,500 divided by 3.
20,000.
Great. And the nice thing about straight line is what?
Easy.
It's easy. Why?
Because depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation is almost same.
For what year?
The first year.
Okay, it is that.
Depreciation expense every year same.
That's what you want. Depreciation expense for every year is the same. Accumulated depreciation for all 3 of them is the same in the first year. All right. So accumulated depreciation starts off 0 at the beginning of the year. So then at the end of the year, once you have a depreciation expense, accumulated depreciation accumulates and it becomes 20,000. Now, who remembers what I told you the formula for book value was?
Cost minus.
Accumulated depreciation equals.
Okay, so cost minus accumulated depreciation. So what would be my book value at the end of year 1?
42,500.
42,500. Okay, so now we know that it's 20, 20, and 20. That's the easy, nice thing about straight line. Once you do it, you're done. So in order to figure out accumulated depreciation, you take year 1 plus year 2, and you get 40,000. So what's my book value at the end of year 2? 62.5 minus 40,000.
22,500.
22,500. And then we take 40,000, we add 20, and we get 60,000. What's my book value at the end of year 3?
2,500.
2,500. What other number is 2,500?
The residual value.
Residual value.
Will that always be?
That is what you should always get to. Residual value, 2,500. Because what residual value says is at the end of the life, it should be worth 2,500. So at the end of the life, it should be worth 2,500. That's how you know you did it right. So does straight line make sense? Okay, that's why the majority of people use straight line. Majority of companies use straight line because it's easy. Once you do it once, you're done, and you just have to carry it out. All right, that's actually the word cost, but okay. So let's do units of production the way your book does it. All right? I'm going to give you a couple numbers that they aren't showing us because when they do show you, they give you the answer, but I'm going to go ahead and put straight line up here. So what they don't tell you for cost is that our units produced are 30,000, 50,000, and 20,000. And if you notice, that totals 100,000. You'll be given that. I'm not showing it to you because when they give it to you, they give you the answer. So I don't want you to see the answer, so I'm not going to give it to you yet, okay? So that's what they're going to tell you, and you would be given that. Now, in a work environment, you would not be given that, right? You'd have to wait to the end of the year. And we're talking about Cedar Fair, which is an amusement park. Cedar Fair does miles, all right? So this roller coaster, or it wasn't a roller coaster, it was bumper cars. They're going to go 30,000 miles in the first year, 50,000. So you would take cost, 62.5, minus residual value, times 30,000 over 100. Oops. Which is 60,000 times 30 over 100, which will actually get you 18,000. Right? Which means our accumulated depreciation is 18,000. And if you subtract that from the cost, it's 44.5. Now, unlike straight line, we have to, it's not the same number. We have to do it again. So I'm going to give you a second to write that down because I already had the math in my head. So I'll give you guys a second to catch up. Can you see the blue okay? Let's switch. I use different than black just so you can see. We'll try green on the next one, all right? So now for year 2, 62.5 minus 2,500 times 50 over 100. So 60,000 times 50 over 100 gives us 30,000. And we take 18 plus 30 gives us 48. Oops, too many zeros. All right. 48 from 62.5 is going to give us 14,500. Is green better? What number don't you know?
Oh, you are working on second year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is first year in the blue. Second year went to green. And every time over here, I'm taking the cost minus accumulated depreciation to get that number. And then year 3, I'm going to put here. So the same thing, 62.5 minus 2,500 times 20 over 100 gives you 12,000. Gives me 60. It gives me 2,500.
How did you calculate this 80,000 in the second year?
Which 80,000? There is no 80,000.
Yeah, it looks like
That's a 50. That's a 50. 50,000.
Oh, and in the third one you write
20. And that was
20,000.
given to us in the problem.
And you just, why are you writing that little angle with a plus or minus?
I'm telling you that you take this one
Oh, okay, I see.
plus that equals that,
I see what you're saying.
just so people can see where it's coming from.
So accumulated depreciation, the procedure is same.
Yes.
In the straight line and the unit of production.
Right, it's cumulative depreciation is always the same, first, 1 year plus the next year, plus the next year. You accumulate it, it adds up. And it keeps adding up until you're done depreciating it. So right now, we're done, 60,000, 60,000, they're both done.
And book value, the calculation of book value is also same. every
Yep.
time, In
Yep.
straight line or in the-
Yep.
It's just the depreciation expense.
It's changing,
which is
yep.
changing.
Okay, so let me just show you the difference, because obviously these are pretty easy numbers, 60,000 times 30 over 100, 60,000 times 50 over 100, 60,000 over 20. Pretty straightforward. But that's not always the number you get. So the way I do it is 62.5 over 2,500 divided by 100. The 60,000 divided by 100 gives you 0.6. Okay? Then you take 0.6 times, what was it? 0.6 times 30,000 for year 1, 0.6 times 50,000 for year 2, and 0.6 times 20,000 for year 3. And it gives you the same 18, 30, and 12. The reason I like this is you do one calculation to get 0.6, or whatever number that is, and then you just multiply it in the year. It doesn't take near as much math. If you're doing it on a test,
Does that work every time?
either formula works. This one's called the depreciable rate. Once you get that rate, you just multiply it by the number of units. I personally think it's faster. I think it's cleaner. If you're showing me work on a test, you don't have to write it out every time. You just get one number.
Where'd you figure that method out at?
It's in a different book. It's just the way I learned. Different authors have different ways. I prefer that way. You can use whichever way you like. Connect's not going to limit you either because you don't show your work. So whichever way makes sense to you, you use that rate, or rate, that formula. All right? It doesn't matter because if you look, the numbers are the same.
Is that divided by that? Okay.
Huh?
You just did it like you just count the cost instead of dividing by unit.
Right.
You just
Every
send the
time,
total on
yeah.
that side and then
Yep.
unit stay on one
Yep.
side. Don't they?
Yep. Just two different ways of the same mathematical problem. I think that one is shorter.
Yeah, this one is cool.
Yes, it's much
Very
shorter.
straight.
But your book does this one. I always want to explain the book because when you go home, if you're looking at your book and I don't even talk about it, you're going to be confused. This is your book. This is me. Do whichever way you want. Okay, then we got double declining. Double declining is different. Double declining says 62.5 cost minus accumulated depreciation times 2 over life. What is accumulated depreciation in year 1 at the beginning of the life of an asset?
Yeah.
0. Every single time, it is 0. That's your guys' biggest mistake on double declining. You want to put residual value there, or you make up a number. I mean, there's wacky numbers in there sometimes. You guys want to pull from one of these. But remember, just like FIFO, LIFO, and weighted average, a company's only going to use one. You guys have to learn all 3. But a company's only going to use one. They can use different ones for different assets if they want. But in that asset, they're going to use one. So don't pull a number from one of the problems above to put in here. That number is 0. So 62.5 times 2/3, if I can remember, is 46,667. I did this problem yesterday. Okay.
41.
Oh, so close. Okay, 41,667, which means my accumulated depreciation is 41,667, and I think my book value is 13,000 something. Do you know what my book value is, Colin? I can figure it out. Oh, no, 20,883. All right, so that's my book value. 833. So now when I come down to year 2, what is my accumulated depreciation?
61662.
No, well, that's the answer. What's my accumulated depreciation? What goes in?
4176.
Yeah. 41, 667 times 2/3, all right? Which is gonna give me, here it actually is 13,889. Which is gonna give me 55,556, which gives me 69,44. And yes, double declining can have some wacky numbers when you have something like 2/3. When you have 2/4 or an even, then you're fine. Yeah.
Did you get the 4,667?
It's 41. Sorry. 41,667. It's that number right there. And then we do the same thing that we did in the ones above. You take accumulated plus. So then what is the number in year 3? What is my accumulated depreciation in year 3?
555.
555. 6 times 2/3. And that is going to give me, oops, no it doesn't. That's the answer I just had. 46, 29, which gives me 6185, which gives me 2314. So, with that being said, does anybody see a problem with what I have on the board? What's the problem?
The problem is the accumulated depreciation is below the residual value.
Okay. And importantly, the book value, not the accumulated depreciation, the book value is below the residual value. So something that we're going to do that you don't typically do in accounting anymore is you have what's called a manual adjustment. You are going to go in and manually adjust this because you cannot take the item and depreciate it past its residual value. Look at, and I'm going to explain this in more detail, but look at, and I'm going to advance the slides real quick. So here's units of production, which you guys have seen on the board. Oops, hang on. One slide. See what I mean by them giving you the numbers? At the same time, they give you the answers. That's why I did it on the board first. If you go back and watch the recording, you're going to notice I'm talking, if you have to go back and look at it, without it, you can't see the board, but you can pull up the slide on your own or whatever and see that this is what it ends up being. And then they do kind of explain a little bit more. Then double declining, one of the things they're going to talk about, and they show you the manual adjustment here, is the fact that, look at the board now, look at the depreciation for straight line, 20,000. Look at it for units of production, 18, 30, 12. That tells you that it depreciates more when you use it more, which makes the most sense, right? So units of production is most accurate. But then look at double declining. What is it doing compared to the others? Look at the first year. What is depreciation expense in the first year?
41,000.
Okay, it's more than double straight line. It's definitely more than double units of production. So it is depreciating at more than twice the speed. If you look at year 2, it drops down to 13, and year 3, it barely has any. The thought process with double declining for companies is, when you buy a brand new car, do you expect to have repairs on it? No. You're having a car payment, right? But so you expect that for the most part, when you have a car payment, you should not have big repairs. You're going to have maintenance, but hopefully no big repairs. What happens when you no longer have a car payment? You could possibly start having repairs. You still hope you don't, right? But you could have repairs. So the thought process with depreciation on double declining is, let's take all the depreciation up front, and then when the item is getting older, we'll start having repair expense. Because depreciation expense reduces your net income from tax purposes. And then when we depreciate it all, then we'll start having repair expense, which will offset the fact that we don't have depreciation expense. kind of the thought process. Let's take and reduce our net income as much as possible now, and then we'll worry about other expense later. Straight line says, let's just take the smooth approach, kind of like weighted average. Let's take the smooth approach with inventory. Yep.
So if the book value was up above the residual value, would you still change
If you're in the last year of double declining and you have not hit the book value, then yes, you would take it down to the residual value. But usually what happens with weighted average is, let's say this was a 5-year asset, you might actually depreciate it in year 4. You might not even get to the 5th year. So double declining tends to depreciate it even before it gets to the final year sometimes. So you usually don't have to write it down. You usually have to make sure you don't overwrite it. So if you have a homework problem that says 5 years, there's a chance you might not get to the 5th year. And that's okay. The whole purpose behind double declining is write it off as quick as possible. In the end, at the end of the life of the asset, it does not matter which one you use. You're at the same place. Year 1, you can see double declining. Year 2, and then straight line actually has the most in the final year. And if you think about mileage on something like that at a roller coaster, in the final year of something, it's not going to operate as well unless they capitalize it and improve it. And if you think of Six Flags, I could be wrong because I'm not a huge Six Flags person. I don't know of many rides they've taken down because they're old. I know of rides they've taken down because they stopped being safe or working, right? So they just keep putting more into the rides to keep them up and running. All right, there are things with some that you might depreciate for like a half a year. If you make an overhaul, we won't do that in here, but that could happen, and then you would do a partial year depreciation. But we will not do that in here. That will go more into intermediate accounting when we start doing partial year depreciation. All right, financial reporting, we're providing how it's going to affect future cash flows, but for income tax reporting, you're looking at whether or not you have enough revenues to pay for the expenditures for the federal government. So there's two different things, and you hear me talk about why people do these things for tax purposes, and then you'll hear me say why they do them for financial. All right, they're going to do double declining because it makes it better for tax, but that's lowering their net income. Does that make it look good for financial?
No.
No. So you want to show everybody how good your cash looks and how good your net income looks for financial reporting. For tax purposes, the whole purpose is reducing your net income so you pay the least amount of taxes. Two different types of reporting, two different objectives.
They all are valid.
These are all valid, yeah. If we ever go to IFRS, double declining is not. Big if. Okay?
How did you do the 3rd year in the double declining method?
You
can-
did it, and then you write it down. You literally cross it off with your pencil, and you change it.
Change it.
Change it.
Change it for how? Like 4.
You have to make this equal 2,500. So you have to figure out what makes that 2,500. Well, we know that has to equal 60. So what number added to this gets to 60? You have to figure that out.
You get this remember.
Yep. So you know this has to be 60, so this is 2,500. So you look at the difference between these two, and that's what your depreciation is. Once you know that this number 2314 and that number 4629 is too big, then you know this has to be 2,500, this has to be 60,000. So you want to take the difference between these two, and that's 4444.
How do you know, like the 60,000? How should we know that it has to be 60,000?
Because that's the only way that can be 25. When you subtract cost, 62.5, and you want to get 2,500, that has to be 60. That's the only way you get 2,500.
How about this 4444?
That once you know that that is 60, you subtract it from the accumulated depreciation there before, and that's 4444. You have a question? Did you have a question?
Yes. I forgot.
That's
It's because I was
the same thing.
Oh yeah, there was a question in the videos that was pretty similar to this last case.
Okay.
But let's say it was asking about the accumulated depreciation of the year number 4.
Okay.
However, I couldn't go further.
It stopped in year 3.
Yeah. So what would be
The answer would probably be NA. Was there an option for
I
NA?
tried to write that, but it told me like no, just numbers. So I wrote 0 and then it was wrong.
Okay, well, I will look at the video while you guys are working on a problem. Okay? So let's get your working papers out.